You've all heard about this Rampage Jackson story by now, the son of former MMA fighter and TNA star Rampage Jackson, nearly beating a wrestler to death at an independent show. This all happened after I dropped the sound off a day early last weekend, naturally, so I didn't have a chance to cover it until now. There's been a lot of things coming out, new video clips being posted. It's a very fluid story, and there's a lot to unpack here. But it's one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen in a wrestling ring. Outside of some of the worst injuries that I've ever seen, this one takes the cake. I've never seen someone nearly beaten to death in a ring before. And it happened at a KnokX Pro wrestling event in Los Angeles. This was last Saturday, which was, at the time, it no longer is, a WWE ID affiliate. It's the promotion co-founded by Rikishi. Although he was said to not be present for any of this, his name is still attached to the promotion, though, right? His name is on it. He's been associated with it for the last 17 years. He's been radio silent on all of this. And it all started before the show. Rampage's son was live streaming on a platform called Kick. He and his dad both do a lot of in real life type of streams. Rampage was live streaming on his own platform when all of this went down. He actually got the news in real time about what his son had done at the event, and he was watching the video of it, and you can see his expression change. And then he left the stream. So these guys feel the need to live stream all aspects of their lives. And Raja, who is not a pro wrestler, has never trained in pro wrestling, doesn't even watch it, is not even really a fan of it, was invited to the show by one of the wrestlers named AJ Mana. Real name Andre Hudson. He's the one dressed up in these videos like a member of the Village People. And it starts with a video outside the venue where before the show, there's a bunch of wrestlers hanging out back. And in the video, you can see Reno Anawai, who goes by the name Black Pearl, who co-founded the promotion with Rikishi, I believe, and actually runs it. He was there. He was right there for all of this. And Raja is standing around outside, and there's a wrestler named Syko Stu, real name Stuart Smith. He's a U.S. Army veteran who apparently wrestles to deal with PTSD from his time as a vet. And he walks over, and he smashes a beer can over Raja's head. It may or may not have been an empty can. It doesn't really matter. And Raja was not expecting this because nobody warned him. No one smartened him up. Of course, he doesn't sell it because he's not a worker. He's not a wrestler. And this guy who he doesn't know just smashed a beer can over his head. Now, if Raja would have swung at him and knocked him out with one punch, we're not talking about this story right now. This story is not making national headlines. And there is not a whole lot of outrage over this story, if that's all that happens. Not unless he knocked him out and killed him with one punch, then we are. But I honestly don't think anybody would have blamed Raja for reacting that way in that circumstance. You know, if someone walks up to you and smashes you in the head with a beer can, especially if you're a fighter, your first instinct is probably going to be to take a swing at him or throw something at them or whatever it may be. So he doesn't sell it. Black Pearl steps in between them, as does AJ Mana, who now realizes the gravity of the situation. He's the one who brought this man to the show in the first place. Raja was his guest. It should have been his responsibility to step in and smarten him up. And Black Pearl, who runs the promotion, is trying to explain to Raja, Syko Stu thinks everything is a work. It's all good. He thought you were a wrestler and everything's a work. And Stu later apologized to Raja 3 times, in fact. A sincere apology once he realizes that this man is not a wrestler. You can even see Stu tell him, look, I'm sorry, man. I saw the camera filming. I thought you were a worker. And after initially refusing his handshake earlier, Raja finally accepts his apology and they shake hands. And it looks like everything is smoothed over. That's where this should have ended. It was a misunderstanding. It's like the most boring beef in the world. And it's over and done with, right? Shit happens. He apologized for it, and you move beyond it. Then we see video of AJ with Raja backstage at the event where they have decided to turn this into an angle. So Raja is going to do a run-in during Stu's match. And as AJ says in the video, you're going to run in on his shit and give him a receipt. And he asks him, he goes, you remember what a receipt is, right? Give him a receipt and tag that shit. They got a fucking problem with it, I'll run out there. There is so much wrong with this, not the least of which is, according to his father, Raja had suffered a concussion in a sparring session days before this, and he should not have been doing anything physical at all. I don't know if his quote-unquote friend AJ was aware of that or not, but that's number one. Number two, if all this guy knows of wrestling is what his friend AJ has told him, and he had to explain to him what a receipt is by telling him you got to go in there and give him his receipt and tag that shit, right? It sounds like he's giving him permission to go in there and fuck this dude up for real. Just completely irresponsible on his part. And again, this man was his invited guest. He brought him in. He has to bear some degree of responsibility here for allowing any of this to happen in the first place. And the promotion had to know, or someone in the promotion had to know, because the wrestler here is not setting up a spot for a non-wrestler to run in without somebody being clued in about it. I mean, someone gave this man his cue to hit the ring when he did. So the promotion had to know about it or approve of it in some way. Now, I'm not a wrestler, but for a wrestler to tell a non-wrestler that it is okay to get a receipt on another wrestler sounds insane to me. AJ issued a statement later on trying to explain that he was in character when he made those comments to Raja backstage about getting a receipt. He said, everything I said was part of the show. Spoken like someone who knows he could be in a lot of hot water if he doesn't cover his ass. Nobody with a functioning brain believes that. But he may be hoping that the district attorney is dumb enough to believe it because it's pro wrestling. And if you blur the lines just enough, he might be able to create just enough doubt to where this shit won't blow back onto him, even though it should. And he wasn't the only person who bears some level of responsibility here for getting this man hyped up to do something. What followed was actually really sad, because Raja sat there in the front row during the show with his face buried in his phone, scrolling through comment after comment after comment on his live stream feed from people who are egging him on, telling him he has to do something, right? Like, as a man, you can't let that stand, and calling him a bitch. Sitting there for an hour reading the chat absolutely played a role in this, because when you have a person like this who is clearly mentally unstable, it does not take much to send them over the edge. And this man is obviously very unstable. So then he's sitting there on video telling everybody exactly what he is going to do, because he's all mic'd up, right? It's completely premeditated. Not just premeditated as a wrestling spot, like I'm going to hit the ring and take him down, but like popping off about how he's always wanted to hit a pro wrestler or knock out a pro wrestler. Like he's openly saying these things. Like, this should be the easiest police investigation ever, with all of the video that's out there of him saying these things in the lead up to the attack. But his followers clearly got him all wound up before he ever set foot inside that ring. And when he did, it was terrifying. He slides into the ring, he picks up Stu like he's nothing. He slams him down hard to the mat, hard enough that it looked like Stu was knocked loopy before the first punch was even thrown. And then the punches rained down. 22 of them in total, almost 24 punches. And these were not worked punches, okay? And he wasn't pulling his punches. This wasn't like 50% of his punching power. He was punching this man, who was completely defenseless, mind you, not even getting his hands up because, again, he was probably knocked out already, but hitting him as hard as he possibly could. Like, if this happened in the octagon, Herb Dean would have dove in for the stoppage after the second punch. He would have called the fight right then and there. But Herb Dean was not the referee for the match. They may as well have had fucking Paula Dean out there as the referee. She would have been about as useful as the guy who was. He probably had piss running down his leg. We just couldn't see it. And look, I'm sure he was scared to death by what he was seeing. Even if he at first thought it was a work, it became pretty clear, though, pretty quickly that it was no longer a work, and it had escalated to something a lot worse. But he just stood there, waving his hands like, no, get off of him. Oh, yeah, that's really going to help. So nobody did anything. It took 13 punches before the guy in clown makeup got into the ring to try to stop him, and even he wasn't making much of an attempt, until finally another wrestler, Doug Drago, runs into the ring to get this man off of him, and he busts his own head open with a headbutt trying to subdue him. And you can see Stu laying there on the mat with just blood pouring out of his head. Had Doug not intervened when he did, we would be talking about a murder charge for Rampage Jackson right now, not attempted murder or assault or battery or whatever you want to call it, because he wasn't going to stop. He said in the video before the match he was going to punch this man for real until somebody pulled him off. And even when people tried to stop him and pull him off, he continued to assault that man. He absolutely would have killed him, or at the very least punched him into a coma with permanent brain damage. And the referee would still be standing there waving his arms around like one of those wacky inflatable tube men that you see at the fucking car dealership. Stu was not conscious when they rushed him to the hospital. They couldn't wake him up. There was a very real fear that he could die. Raja, who was being filmed for his kick stream throughout all of this, okay, still streaming. They kept the stream going. They followed him, whoever his friend was who had the camera and was filming him. I mean, it really felt like something out of a wrestling show. Like it's following him as he's being, led out of the building after the incident. And he's in the street. He's walking down the street. And he just starts raving like a lunatic about how he's tired of everybody playing with him and people calling him bitch. He was talking about his father. There's another clip of Rampage calling him earlier before the beating, but Raja is sitting in the front row at the wrestling show. So it happened that night. But like in the clip I saw, they kind of spliced the two videos together because they were both streaming. Again, it's like they're each streaming 24 hours a day. And Rampage is giving him a hard time for hugging some dude. I think it was one of his coaches. I'm pretty sure it's in reference to something completely unrelated to the, incident that we're talking about and the wrestling stuff. But Rampage is just giving him shit for hugging this guy. And then later on, as Raja is sitting there at the show, scrolling through his chat, he makes the comment, "Watch, my dad can't never call me a bitch." So after everything happens and he's leaving and walking down the street completely unhinged, and he's screaming about people calling him a bitch, like I'm telling you, he's talking about his dad. In some warped way, part of this was him proving to his father that he's no bitch. It's like, watch what I do. I'll show you. This is someone with severe daddy issues and a lot of pent-up rage inside of him. He was a powder keg waiting to explode, and from the moment that beer can smacked him in the head, that lit the fuse. Now, Stu diffused it with the apology, but then the cowboy, good old AJ, he lit it back up again when he told him to go get his receipt. And it was only a matter of time before he exploded after that. There are a lot of people who bear responsibility for this, and even if you believe that Syko Stu should bear some of that too, it does not excuse his behavior here. Nothing that Stu did earlier that day warranted what we saw in that video. Nothing. And anyone trying to blame the victim here is just as disgusting as this piece of shit is. Like, how morally bankrupt do you need to be to make any kind of excuse for what we saw in that ring? Now, the LAPD is investigating the incident. Meanwhile, Raja's still walking around a free man. Maybe not for much longer. Hopefully not for much longer. Someone that volatile should not be walking the streets. KnokX Pro issued a statement later on that reads, "First and foremost, our thoughts and prayers are with our brother, Mr. Stuart Smith, Syko Stu, as he remains a priority, and we are monitoring his well-being. What was supposed to be a planned and agreed-upon wrestling spot turned into a selfish, irresponsible act of violence against Mr. Smith. This egregious act is reprehensible and never should have occurred. In the 17 years of operation of KnokX Pro Wrestling Academy, there has never been anything as heinous to take place as this, and we apologize to our patrons and our fans." They have since, rightfully, been stripped of their WWE ID designation. I mean, that was a no-brainer. Not only because WWE would want to do everything in its power to distance themselves from this school and this promotion, but because when you accept a designation like this, there should be certain expectations, one would think, that you are going to conduct your business in such a way that aligns with a designation like that. And KnokX Pro failed to do that. From using a non-wrestler in a wrestling angle without even going over what it was that they were supposed to be doing, to the assault itself, and then the way that it was handled, to one of the wrestlers covering Syko Stu in the video as he laid there unconscious, literally choking on his own blood and teeth, so that the referee could count the three. Because kayfabe, I guess. The man is laying there dying, but let's count the fucking fall. When you are given the WWE designation, the ID designation, in theory, you are being given their seal of approval, that this is a credible group where people can safely learn, right, and train and be prepared for the next phase of their career. And everything about this screamed amateur hour, like as amateur as it can get. So WWE had no choice but to make an example out of them. Now, Stu's brother, Andrew, posted on Monday that Stu is stable but in critical care. He only has some recollection of what happened from early parts of the day. The latest update on Wednesday is that he is talking a little bit. He's alert, but he still has injuries that, while not life-threatening at this point, are still very serious. But it did come with a photo of him sitting up in his hospital bed surrounded by friends, which was nice to see. A GoFundMe page has been set up to assist with medical expenses and a loss of income. Obviously, he's not going to be able to work for a while. I don't believe wrestling was his full-time career, but whatever else he does, he will not be doing it for a while at the very least. Last I checked, and this is as of late day Wednesday, it had raised over $150,000. Mr. Beast, who has over 420 million subscribers on YouTube alone, became aware of the incident because it made national news, and I saw that he dropped 10 grand alone on the campaign. So he's been getting a lot of support. Then there's the legal aspect of this. Now, legally, the question should not be if he will face punishment for what he did, but how stiff that punishment is going to be. And it shouldn't matter whether somebody wants to press charges. I see some people asking, is he going to press charges? Do they need him to press charges? What you see in that video, at the very least, is clearly battery. The question becomes, in the state of California, how do you define attempted murder? Which is what this looked like. If you watch this video, right, you don't have to be a lawyer, just as a layman person, you watch this video and it looks like you are watching an attempted murder. But that boils down to intent. You need to be able to prove that he intended to kill this man, not to seriously injure him, to kill him. So the intent to inflict bodily harm, that's not enough. I would argue 24 shots to the skull to a man who was clearly knocked out and unable to defend himself. And again, he wasn't going to stop if somebody didn't intervene. That tells me he was pretty intent on ending that man once those emotions took over and the adrenaline kicked in, but proving intent, it looks like that's going to be a heavy lift. So if he was to be charged with a crime here, he could be looking at felony battery. And a felony battery conviction in California, from what I've seen, may result from a sentence of up to 4 years in prison. So even if he gets locked up, it's not like he's doing 25 to life or anything like that. It'll be very interesting to see if he is charged, if he tries to use the concussion as part of his defense, as his father brought up in that statement. It would be a hell of a reach, but that's what lawyers do. They defend their clients. For him not to be charged with a crime here for what he did would be just an absolute injustice. And then you consider the civil aspect of this, where he could be sued by Syko Stu for what he did. And that, to me, that's a slam dunk case if he does. Stu might even have a case against the people at KnokX Pro if he wanted to pursue it. And what an unsafe work environment that turned out to be. They come off looking bad enough when it comes to how we even got to this point in the first place. But then on the Scaling Up podcast, it was alleged by a former talent there named Ian that the promotion has instructed those who work there not to speak with the authorities or any attorneys should they reach out to them. Instead, they said they should come to the promotion first for guidance. And in the podcast video, they show screenshots allegedly from Kevin Thomas, aka KT King, instructing people to, quote, "Please refrain from engaging in comment sections on social media posts about this tragedy. It will be weaponized in potential criminal and civil cases. Fly low." Another text advised, if law enforcement or an attorney for the suspect contacts you in any capacity, let someone here know right away for guidance on how to address them. So don't talk to the cops. Talk to us first. That sounds like something that a company would tell its employees if they had any sort of legal exposure or they thought they might be sued if there was some kind of an incident, so that they can direct all inquiries to their own lawyers, right? A lot of companies have their own firm that they contract with, or maybe internally they have their own lawyers. Pro wrestlers, though, are not employees. They're independent contractors. And telling them not to talk to the cops if they reach out, these wrestlers are under no obligation to listen to anything these people have to say. This should not be about protecting KnokX Pro. They need to be held liable for what happened just the same as Raja does. What that looks like, I don't know. But they definitely bear a lot of responsibility here as well. Now, Doug Drago, the guy who finally pulled Raja off of Stu, he worked for KnokX Pro for 3 years. He was on that same podcast to talk about the incident. He doesn't work there anymore because, like he says, they would watch me die. These people showed that they would just watch me die. How can I trust you with my body after something like this? He also said that while he doesn't like Raja and he thinks he's a shit person for what he did, AJ Mana is a bigger shit person for gassing him up and causing him to ruin his own life. And in his view, AJ ruined 2 people's lives that night. And he's not wrong. In fact, he's absolutely right. He should be punished in some way for his role in this as well. I don't know that he will be punished legally, but at the very least, no promotion should want to work with him after this. I don't have a lot of faith that that's going to happen. There are people in the wrestling business that have done far worse things who get hired again somewhere because that's the wrestling business. Usually, though, it's people who actually draw money. Like the promoter can excuse bad behavior because that person has a name and they can sell tickets. I don't know that AJ is a big draw. So it would be nice to see other promotions stand up and say, you're not welcome here. Then you got wrestlers like Rob Van Dam tweeting out, so far, I got Raja's back, as a tease for his video that went up the next day on YouTube. He didn't have his back so much as in the video he was explaining how he could understand the reasons why this guy would have reacted the way he did. But he knew what he was doing when he tweeted that out, and he rightfully got flamed for being an idiot. And I get it. His other content doesn't look like it gets much in the way of engagement or views. Then you have Mark Henry speaking to TMZ saying, if what I saw was what I saw, which is people before the show drinking and intoxicated or partially intoxicated, you bust a bottle over a guy's head and talk trash like that guy was not going to do anything, yeah, you're at fault. Very nice. It was a can, not a bottle. But I assume Mark didn't see the multiple apologies and the handshake that followed. You know, he was just going off half-cocked. It's one of the reasons I like waiting a few days for things to settle in some of these situations if I can, just to try to get a fuller picture of what actually happened. There's so much more video that I came across in the days after the incident that adds a lot of context. But you only need so much context in this case to know that the one at fault is the man who beat someone half to death. He also said about Syko Stu, what kind of example are you as a veteran for inciting a riot with a kid? I've seen that word thrown around a lot this week also, kid. He's just a kid. He's 25 years old. He talks about him like he's some rookie out of high school. Stop talking about him like he doesn't know the difference between right and wrong. Like he's a child who should be given the benefit of the doubt. He's a grown-ass man behaving like a child. But that doesn't mean he should be treated like one. Chael Sonnen was the worst of them all. I'm not even going to dignify what he said with a response. But Chael is terrible anyway, so I'm not surprised he would say a bunch of stupid shit. There is no justification for what Raja Jackson did. You can try to make sense of it, and he would have ended up so blinded by anger that, he would do what he did, but there's no justifying it or assigning anything even remotely close to equal blame to the victim here. It's like, imagine after Travis Scott tagged Cody Rhodes with that open hand slap at Elimination Chamber, where he busted Cody's eardrum. If Cody came back at WrestleMania to get his receipt, and he proceeded to pound Travis into unconsciousness. Now, obviously, that would never happen. But I don't doubt that you would have had people praising Cody for defending the business. Travis started it, whatever. There would be no justification for something like that because that is not how a well-adjusted, stable human being acts. This is a man that needs psychological help, and he can get that help while he serves out his sentence.